Hello, everybody. My name is Gretchen Ivy. I am an instructor at West London Tuition Academy. I'm an IELTS instructor. And what we're going to do today is work on context clues. Now, what are context clues? Well, I don't know every English word, so sometimes I have to look for hints or clues within a passage to kind of tell me what that word means. Now, it's a very useful skill to develop because when you're doing your exam, especially your reading session, part of the reading examination, you're probably going to run across words that you don't know. Now, if you have a dictionary with you, you can look them up, but that takes time. So if you can use context clues to get the general meaning of a word, it will save you lots of time and you're going to get the meaning out of the passage. Okay, so that's what context clues are. Now there's various types of context clues. There's example, there's description, and there's definition. All right, so we're going to look at each one of these, see a couple of examples of each one, and we're going to do some examples together. Okay, so we're going to look at the first one here. Now we have a passage that says some dogs can be trained to respond to gestures instead of sounds. For example, a hand pointing in a certain direction, an open palm, down, or arms outstretched can be used to mean go, sit, or come to a well-trained dog. Now, what we have here is example. First of all, our word in question, our word that we are a little unsure of is the word gesture. Okay, so let's just highlight gesture so we know what we're talking about. Now, what they do, this is example. So let's just say example. You know what we're talking about? Okay, they give you examples of gestures in this passage. Okay, so if we look, we see open hand, palm down, or arms outstretched. I will make this as straight as I possibly can. These are all examples of gestures. So reading that, we know, oh, okay, open hand, palm down, outstretched arms. These are physical actions used to help train animals, or they're physical gestures. You can use them for people, waving, okay? So that's how we can figure out the general idea of what gesture means. Okay, so that is an example of example. All right, so we're going to move ahead to the next one. Okay, sometimes they will define the word for you. Now, this definition isn't going to be what you would find in a dictionary. Dictionary definition is very specific. This is going to be just kind of telling you what the word means. Okay, so let's have a look at this one. And it says, it is a fact that a large number of small businesses fail because the owner hasn't enough capital to tide him over slack periods and emergencies. That is, it takes a certain amount of working money to keep a business going. All right, now our word in question here is capital. Capital has a couple of meanings in English. We want a certain one. Okay, now this is definition because it is telling you what the word means. If you see this here, this phrase, that is, this is indicating a definition is coming. Okay, so that's a very good clue to look for when you read a passage. If you see anything like that is or thus, it is indicating that they're going to tell you something about the word. So it takes a certain amount of working money to keep a business going. So if we put our thinking caps on, we can say that capital is working money or a certain amount of working money. It's a financial term because we're talking about, we also know it's a financial term because it's talking about business. Okay, so we'll move on to the next one. So that's a way that they will actually tell you something about what the word means. Okay, now that gave a very big clue when it said that is. Not all definition context clues do that. And here's an example of one. So we've got an aquarium needs a scavenger fish, swimming garbage collectors to keep the tank clean. Okay, so our word in question is scavenger. Now, in this case, it's referring to a fish, but scavengers can refer to other things as well. So you're thinking, I don't know what a scavenger is. But if we read ahead, swimming garbage collectors. All right, so basically a scavenger is a garbage collector. They're animals that will feast and live off of garbage. Okay, in this case, it's a swimming garbage collector because we're talking about a fish. And they keep the tank clean. So scavengers tend to do that. They tend to, things like blackbirds are scavengers. They'll eat roadkill and it keeps it clean. A scavenger fish is going to eat the leftover garbage from other fish, other debris, to help keep the tank clean. Okay, so that is an example of definition. It tells you what the word means, but there's just no clue in there like the previous one that said that is. Okay, now what they will do is sometimes they won't tell you what the word means, but they will describe the word or a condition of the word. And we have an example of that here. And that's called description. The first impression that crossed my mind was the woman was obese. Her clothing was stretched across her vast surface of skin like a lumpy balloon, stretching to the bursting point. So we get quite a visual here of a woman who's wearing clothes that are just far too small for her. And our word in question is obese. So they're describing an obese woman and what she looks like. Her clothes are very tight, they're stretched, the stitches are about to pop. So we might not get the exact meaning of obese, but we can guess that obese has something to do with weight. This woman is obese. Her clothes are very, very tight. So the actual definition of obese is somebody who is quite overweight to the point where they're being unhealthy. All right. So even though we might not get that specific, we can kind of look at this and go, okay, if this woman's obese and her clothes are looking like this, she's probably fat, she's probably overweight. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through some examples and we're now going to try to define the word in question as best we can. Now, again, you don't have to have a perfect dictionary definition from your context clues. You just need to have a good idea of what the word means. Okay. So we're going to look at the first one. It says, the governor visited the zoo and found to his surprise that he had a friend there in one of the zoo's pet snakes. The reptile wrapped itself chummily around the governor's shoulders. All right, I don't think I'd like that too much. Reptile is our word in question. So if we don't know what reptile means, we can look at what they have described for us. So we know that the governor is at a zoo. So they tend to keep animals in zoos. And it tells you he's there looking at pet snakes. So reptile is referring to the snake. So if we had to define reptile, we could say a reptile is an animal. We know this because it's in a zoo. Now we know that a snake is a reptile. So we could say possibly a snake. For example, a snake. Okay, so that is a reptile. It's an animal. For example, a snake. There are other types of reptiles. You don't have to get that specific. Okay, so let's move to our next example, our next practice. Now, I'll admit, I had to look this word up myself. The Indians taught the Europeans to preserve meat by making pemmican, cakes prepared from dried lean mixed with fat, a skill which saved many a trapper's life. Okay, so this is an example of definition. They are telling you what a pemmican is, but there's no clue such as a word like that is. So it's just a comma and it says cakes prepared from dried lean meat mixed with fat. Okay, so that's a pemmican. So if we had to define it, all we would have to do is say a pemmican is a cake prepared from dried lean meat mixed with fat. We did scavenger fish already. Okay, next one. Meteorites are not easy to find, and those shooting stars that do survive the long journey to Earth are usually pitted and oddly shaped. So here we have a bit of a definition and some example. Okay, so you might not know what a meteorite is just by looking at the word, but when we read this little passage, shooting stars. Okay, now if they do make it to Earth, most meteorites actually don't, but some of them do, they're usually pitted and oddly shaped when they're found. Okay, so if we had to define meteorite, we could say a meteorite right is a shooting star. You know, it comes from space. They are often pitted and oddly shaped. Okay, so that is just a quick lesson on how you can use the actual passage to help you with words you don't understand. Look for clues within the passage itself. It saves you time having to flip through your dictionary. Time is of the essence in an IELTS exam. The more time you have to actually attack questions, the better. So I hope everybody enjoyed that session. If you are interested in joining our online course, please do get in touch via the email on the YouTube channel or the WhatsApp number. Please do subscribe. Everybody have a wonderful day. Good luck and best of luck on your IELTS exam.